What's up, everybody? Jay here from Tap and Turn Gaming, coming at you today with another EDH deck tech, of course. So today is for one of Derek's decks. We posted a poll on the channel a couple weeks ago of what deck you wanted to see next. We gave you four choices, and all of you that voted overwhelmingly voted for Varina Lich Queen. So that's what we're going to be taking a look at here today. Again, this is Derek's build. It's Tribal Esper Zombies. So without further ado, let's get right on into it. So first up, we're going to take a look at the general, obviously, as we do. So the general is Varina Lich Queen. She is a 4/4 legendary creature zombie wizard via 1 generic and Esper, so that's white, blue, black. And she's got some pretty potent abilities. So first one is whenever you attack with one or more zombies, draw that many cards, then discard that many cards, you gain that much life. Her second ability, pay 2 generic, exile 2 cards from your graveyard, create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token. So two pretty potent abilities. The first one is obviously the most powerful one. Does kind of have a downside where, let's say you attack with 5 zombies. You're going to draw 5 cards, discard 5 cards, then gain 5 life. Drawing 5 cards and gaining 5 life is pretty nice. But, you know, dumping cards in the graveyard to some could be kind of a downside. But it really doesn't matter too much in this deck, as this deck is very heavily focused on particular engines, as Derek likes to put it, or combos to basically kind of just infinitely do dirty things. So this deck does have quite a few engines or combos that make it operate at a very efficient way. We'll take a look at that later on in the video. Actually, I'll have Derek describe it to you in his own words so you can see exactly how the pieces work and what they do. But anyway, that's more or less Varina in a nutshell. Again, this is Tribal Zombies, so obviously all the creatures, or most of the creatures in the deck, are going to be zombies to take advantage of that first ability. And the second one, you know, being able to pay 2 and exiling 2 cards from your graveyard to create 2/2 black zombies, you know, whatever chaff that we dump into the bin that we don't necessarily need, we can just turn into creature tokens later on down the road in the game. But yeah, that's Varina, so let's move on in to the main part of the deck. So first up, we're going to take a look at the creature base of this deck. As we do usually, we like to start off with the creatures. So we're going to take a look at these from lowest converted mana cost to highest converted mana cost, and I'd say probably 95% of these creatures are zombies. So first up we have Crypt Breaker, a 1/1 for 1 black mana. We can pay 1 and a black, tap him, discard a card, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield, and then we can tap 3 untapped zombies we control to draw our card and lose a life. So this guy generates you tokens and draws you cards. Granted that you meet those stipulations to activate those abilities, but in this deck, really not going to be an issue. Next we have Gravecrawler, which is one of the integral pieces in some of Derek's combo engines, which again, we'll take a look at later on in the video. But Gravecrawler is a 2/1 for 1 black mana. He cannot block, but you may cast Gravecrawler from your graveyard as long as you control a zombie. So controlling a zombie, one single solitary zombie, is not going to be any issue in this deck, seeing as we run 32 creatures, and again, most of them are zombies. So meeting that clause on Gravecrawler, not going to be an issue. Next we have Relentless Dead, a 2/2 for double black with Menace, so it can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. When it dies, you can pay 1 black. If you do, return it to your hand. And also, when it dies, you may pay X. If you do, return another target zombie creature card with converted mana cost X from your graveyard to the battlefield. So not only does he recur himself, he recurs some of your other stuff that's in the graveyard, granted that you have the mana to dump into that ability. So if you want to get back a 3-cost creature out of your graveyard, you pay 3 on that second ability, and he's going to bring it right back to the battlefield. And then obviously the first ability, he can just bring himself back to your hand for 1 lonely black mana. So pretty powerful effects there. Next up we have Wayward Servant, a 2/2 for a a 2/2 for a white and a black. There we go. Whenever another zombie enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So pretty self-explanatory there. It's kind of like an undead Soul Warden in a way, at least for this deck anyway. But you get the added benefit of draining your opponents as well. Then we have Cemetery Reaper, a 2/2 for 1 and 2 black. It's a zombie lord, so other zombie creatures you control get +1/+1. It's always nice. Then we can pay 2 and a black, tap it, exile target creature card from a graveyard. Doesn't have to be ours, it can be our opponent's. And we put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. So a zombie lord that can create more zombies. Pretty nice. Then we have Death Baron, another zombie lord. A 2/2 for 1 and 2 black. Skeletons you control and other zombies you control get +1/+1 and have Death Touch. So, the Anthem effect is nice, but giving the Death Touch, that's some primo stuff right there. It basically turns all of your creatures into kill spells if they deal damage in combat. So nothing to scoff at there. Then we have Diregraph Captain, another zombie lord, a 2/2 for 1, a blue and a black with Death Touch. Other zombie creatures you control get +1/+1, and whenever another zombie you control dies, target opponent loses 1 life. So more of the same. We get a couple of things that drain and gain. This guy doesn't gain you any life, but he drains your opponents out whenever any of your zombies die. Then we have Lich Lord of Unks, a 2/2 for 1, a blue and a black. We can pay a blue and a black, tap it, put a 1/1 blue and black zombie wizard creature token into play. Then we can pay 2 blue and 2 black. Don't have to tap it for this ability. Target player loses X life and puts the top X cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard, where X is the number of zombies you control. So obviously the more zombies you control, the more potent that effect's going to be. Then we have Lord of the Undead, another zombie lord, ironically. I mean, it's in the name. But he's a 2/2 for 3 via 1 and 2 black. Other zombie creatures get +1/+1. And you can pay 1 and a black, tap it, return target zombie card from your graveyard to your hand. So, nice little Anthem effect and some recursion all on 1 card. Seems legit. Then we have a new card from Guilds of Ravnica, Midnight Reaper. He's a 3/2 for 3 via 2 and a black. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, this deals 1 damage to you and you draw a card. So the damage getting dealt to us isn't really going to matter if we have Varina out, because she's going to gain us life whenever we attack with zombies anyway. So that's going to offset the life loss from this guy. So essentially, he's just a card drawer engine, which is always nice to have. Then we have Plague Belcher, a 5/4 for 3 via 2 and a black with Menace. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you put 2 -1/-1 counters on target creature you control, and then whenever another zombie you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. So very similar to the Diregraph Captain with that life loss ability. We really don't care about having to put 2 -1/-1 counters on one of our creatures. We just like the fact that this will drain our opponents out whenever any of our zombies die. Next we have Sidraxis Alchemist, a 2/2 for 3 via 2 and a black when it comes into play. If you control a blue permanent, return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So some nice bounce effects there. Again, this can be used in one of the many engines that Derek has in the deck, and we'll see that again later on in the video. Then we have Unraveling Mummy, a 2/3 for 3 via 1, a white, and a black. You can pay 1 and a white, target attacking zombie gains lifelink until end of turn, or pay 1 and a black, target attacking zombie gains death touch until end of turn. So, if we don't have, like Death Baron or something like that out on the board that's going to give our stuff death touch or whatever, we've got these 2 abilities to grant lifelink and or death touch to something if we so choose. Then we have Zombie Master, a 2/3 for 3 via 1 and 2 black. All zombies in play gain Swamp Walk and Regeneration for 1 black mana. Obviously, the way that this card is worded, it says for as long as this card remains in play. I mean, that's pretty obvious, but it's a pretty old card, or at least the version that I have of it here in front of me that I'm looking at. So, not technically a Lord, I guess, because it doesn't really grant an Anthem effect. But if your opponent's also playing black, you can just Swamp Walk over them with this guy out, and all of your zombies can regenerate for 1 black mana. So that's pretty good. Then we have one of the few creatures in the deck that is not a zombie itself, but it plays with zombies very well. That's Jissa and Geralf, a 4/4, 4/4. Wow, say that a bunch of times fast. A 4/4 for 4, a 4/4 for 4. Yeah, okay, anyway. Via 2, a blue and a black. Whenever Jissa and Geralf enters the battlefield, put the top 4 cards of your library in your graveyard. Sure, but the second ability is why we really like it. During each of your turns, you may cast a zombie creature card from your graveyard. So when we're dumping a lot of our stuff in the bin, when we activate Varina's first ability there, this allows us to kind of get some value from the stuff that we're dumping into the bin. Then we have Grave Defiler, a 2/1 for 4 via 3 and a black. When it comes into play, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. Put all zombie cards revealed this way into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library. And then you can regenerate it for 1 and a black. So if a lot of you are familiar with like Goblin Ringleader and stuff like that, this is basically that card just for zombies. So we have Gravedigger, good old Gravedigger, 2/2 for 4 via 3 and a black. When it enters the battlefield, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So again, works pretty well with our general. If we dump something in the bin that we want, we can, toss out a Gravedigger, sorry. The word grave is used quite frequently in this deck, so I might mix the card names up a little bit. But anyways, lets us take a creature back from our yard and put it back into our hand so that we can use it again later. Next we have Skin Render, a 3/3 for 4 via 2 and 2 black. When it enters the battlefield, put 3 -1/-1 counters on target creature. Pretty self-explanatory. Then we have Undead Warchief, a 1/1 for 4 via 2 and 2 black. Zombie spells you play cost 1 less to play, and zombies you control get +2/+1. So not only does he pump all your other zombies, so he is a zombie lord, he pumps himself because he is a zombie himself. So when he comes in, he is a 3/2, not just simply a 1/1 because he Anthem affects himself. But that's all fine and good, but probably being able to cast our zombie spells for less mana is probably the better of the 2 abilities on this guy. Then again, we do have Rooftop Storm in the deck, which you'll see later on, which kind of nullifies that whole cheaper casting cost. But yeah, Undead Warchief, he's good. He's good. Then we have Vengeful Dead, a 3/2 for 4 via 3 and a black. Whenever it or another zombie is put into a graveyard from play, each opponent loses 1 life. So more ways for us to just drain our opponents out. Then we have Vindictive Lich, a 4/1 for 4 via 3 and a black. When it dies, choose 1 or more. Each mode must target a different player. So this guy is more suited for like a big multiplayer game. If you're playing just like 1v1, you're not going to be able to get the full effect out of this guy. But anyway, The three modes are target opponent sacrifices a creature, target opponent discards 2 cards, or target opponent loses 5 life. So, I mean, even if you get to only choose one of those, still pretty good, but why only choose one if you can choose all three? So, obviously, again, he's best suited for multiplayer play. Then we have Corpse Harvester, a 3/3 for 5 via 3 and 2 black. You can pay 1 and a black and tap it, sacrifice a creature, search your library for a zombie card and a swamp card, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. So basically a tutor effect on a body. It is only going to search out zombie cards out of our deck, but seeing as 32% of our deck is zombies, we're probably going to be searching for one of those cards when we activate this. So pretty powerful effect. It also ramps you, makes sure that you are hitting your land drops. Then we have Ghoulcaller Gissa, a 3/4 for 5 via 3 and 2 black. You can pay a black, tap her, and sacrifice another creature to put X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is the sacrifice creature's power. So if we sacrifice a 10/10, we get 10 2/2 black zombies. So that's a pretty potent ability. I actually have a mono black commander deck built around this lady, this fine lady. So you can check that out on our channel. It's somewhere in our video list. I might actually leave a link in the description of this video if you wanted to check out my Ghoulcaller Gissa deck. But anyways, moving on to the next creature, we have Grey Merchant of Asphodel, a 2/4 for 5 via 3 and 2 black. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life, where X is your devotion to black. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. So basically, your devotion to black is the amount of black mana symbols among the permanents that you have out on the board. So if you have 10 black mana symbols among all the stuff you have on the board, each one of your opponents is going to lose 10, and then you're going to gain that much. So if your devotion to black is pretty high, good old Gary is going to do good things for you. Then we have Grimgrin Corpseborn, a 5/5 for 5 via 3, a blue and a black. When he enters the battlefield, he enters the battlefield tapped, and doesn't untap during your untap step. You can sacrifice another creature to untap him and put a +1/+1 counter on him. And also, whenever he attacks, destroy target creature defending player controls, then put a +1/+1 counter on him. So a slew of abilities there, all very potent. A free sacrifice outlet is usually something you always want to have access to. This gives you that, and it also makes this creature bigger. And then whenever you attack with him, you can just destroy anything that you want and then make him bigger again. So, the fact that he enters the battlefield tapped is really of no object to us. We have plenty of creatures that we can sacrifice away to untap him. Then we have Haven Ghoul Lich, a 4/4 for 5 via 3, a blue and a black. You can pay 1 generic, and you may cast target creature card from a graveyard this turn. When you cast this card, Haven Ghoul Lich gains all activated abilities of that card until end of turn. Next we have Phyrexian Delver, a 3/2 for 5 via 3 and 2 black. When it comes into play, return target creature card from your graveyard to play. You lose life equal to that card's converted mana cost. So a nice little, reanimate type effect. Then we have Sidisi Undead Vizier, a 4/6 for 5 via 3 and 2 black with Death Touch. It also has Exploit, so whenever this creature enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a creature. And then when this exploits a creature, you may search your library for a card and put it in your hand. So if you utilize the Exploit on this, you basically get a demonic tutor effect. So nothing wrong with that. Then we have the Scarab God, a 5/5 for 5 via 3, a blue and a black. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses X life, and you scry X, where X is the number of zombies you control. We can also pay 2, a blue and a black, exile target creature card from a graveyard, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 4/4 black zombie. And when this dies, return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. So lots and lots of abilities on this guy, all very, very good. Seeing as we're tribal zombies, it's like a must include for this guy. And we're in blue and black anyway, so the Scarab God's an auto include. This also is a pretty popular card itself to be a commander on its own, but it does fit very well into this deck as well. Next we have Gem Palm Polluter, a 4/3 for 6 via 5 and a black, but most of the time we're not going to be casting this as a 4/3. Most of the time we're going to be cycling it, so it has cycling for double black. So cycling is you can pay the cost and then discard this card from your hand and draw a card. And then whenever you cycle Gem Palm Polluter, you may have target player lose 1 life for each zombie in play. Doesn't have to be just the amount of zombies that you control, it's just the amount of zombies in play. So if somebody else has some zombies in play as well, that'll count towards this life loss. Then we have Geth, Lord of the Vault, a 5/5 for 6 via 4 and 2 black with Intimidate, so he can't be blocked except by artifact creatures and or creatures that share a color with him. And then you can pay X and 1 black, put target artifact or creature card with converted mana cost X from an opponent's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control tapped. Then that player puts the top X cards of their library into their graveyard. So again, this doesn't play well with Varina in a sense that it only will target your opponent's graveyard, but it's still a pretty powerful effect to be able to steal a creature or an artifact from your opponent's graveyard and then mill them for the mana cost of the card that you just stole. So, still pretty powerful effect. And then lastly for our creatures, we have Mikaeus the Unhallowed, a 5/5 for 6 via 3 and triple black with Intimidate. Whenever a human deals damage to you, destroy it, and other non-human creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Undying. Extremely powerful card. Was just recently reprinted in Ultimate Masters, which is kind of a godsend because this card was just like creeping and creeping and creeping in value. Not that Ultimate Masters is a cheap product to come by, but the fact that this was reprinted means, maybe there'll be a little bit normalization to the price on this. Anyway, this is obviously just a ridiculous card, right? It's a big body, it has Intimidate, and it's going to anthem all of your creatures, except for Jissa and Geralf, because they are human. But basically all the rest of your cards are going to get +1/+1 and have Undying. So for those of you that don't know what Undying is, whenever that creature dies, it comes right back to the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. So very, very potent effect. And that wraps up the creature package. So, a lot of cards, 32 cards, so 32% of our deck is creatures, but rightfully so. With any kind of tribal deck, you're probably going to be loading up on more creatures than you are spells. But next up, we're going to take a look at the artifacts that we run in this deck. And again, we're going to go from lowest to highest converted mana cost. But actually, you know what? We'll take a look at kind of types of cards. So first up, we'll take a look. Sorry for changing it on the fly, but I feel like it makes more sense this way. We'll take a look at the mana rocks, because there are quite a few mana rocks. Obviously you want to be able to ramp into your big stuff as early as possible. So first up, you guessed it, Sol Ring. Are any of you surprised that Sol Ring is in this deck? Of course you're not. Everybody plays Sol Ring, right? Well, I play Sol Ring a lot, but I don't play it in all my decks. Anyway, we have it in this deck. Then we have a Chromatic Lantern, a Commander's Sphere, a Darksteel Ingot, a Manolith, and an Obelisk of Esper. We also have Spectral Searchlight and Vessel of Endless Rest. So those are all of our mana rocks that we run in the deck. They all serve the same purpose. They're just going to ramp our mana so we can get to our big splashy stuff earlier than we should. Alright, and as far as the rest of the artifacts go, now we'll go from lowest to highest converted mana cost. So we're going to start with Skull Clamp. A 1-cost artifact equipment, costs 1 to equip. Equipped creature gets +1/-1, and whenever the equipped creature dies, we draw 2 cards. So if we happen to kill the creature just with the -1 to the toughness off of this, great. We just drew 2 cards for 1 mana. Or we might have a free sacrifice outlet where we can sacrifice the creature away. There's multiple ways that we can draw cards off of this, but that's why it's there, is for the card draw, because it's a pretty ludicrous card draw. Then we have Phyrexian Altar, a 3-cost artifact where you can sacrifice a creature, add 1 mana of any color. So this was also reprinted in Ultimate Masters, so the price on this was pretty ridiculous for the original. I forget what set it was from initially, but you know, the fact that it was reprinted means that you can get your hands on this for a lot cheaper than what the original was going for. Next, we have Alhamarit's Archive. It's a 5-cost artifact. If you would gain life, you gain twice that much life instead, so that plays very well with Varina. You know, if we attack with 5 guys, draw 5 cards, discard 5 cards, gain 5 life. Oops, I have Alhamarit's Archive out. I'm going to gain 10 instead. So, very nice. And also, if you would draw a card, except for the first one you draw in each of your steps, draw 2 cards instead. Speaking of drawing cards, Vanquisher's Banner is our last artifact that we're going to take a look at. It also costs 5. When it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Going to be zombies, obviously. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1, so a nice little anthem effect. And whenever you cast a creature spell of the chosen type, draw a card. So, again, more ways to draw cards. And if we have the previous card, Alhamarit's Archive, out, we're going to draw 2 cards instead of 1 whenever we cast a zombie. So, very nice. And that wraps up the artifacts of the deck. Mostly mana rocks, but a couple of other nice, little things that draw us cards or do other cool things. Alright, next we're going to move into the spells. First, we're going to take a look at the sorceries that we run. We run 7. First up is Vindicate. Just destroys target permanent for 1, a white, and a black. Pretty self-explanatory, just a little spot removal for us. And then a lot of the other stuff is like board wipes. Actually, all of them are board wipes. So we have Patriarch's Bidding. Sorry, this isn't a board wipe. Anyway, Patriarch's Bidding costs 5 via 3 and 2 black. Each player chooses a creature type. Each player returns all creature cards of a type chosen this way from his or her graveyard to play. So the exact opposite of a board sweep. But, this is really nice to play like late game. After Varina has dumped a whole bunch of stuff in the bin, you cast this, you obviously are going to choose zombies, and you're going to get all the zombies in your yard back onto the board. Your opponents also do get to do the same thing, but, if you're not playing against people that are also running tribal, you're probably going to make out better than they are. But if you're playing against somebody else that's also running a tribal deck, you might be a little wary of playing this card, because it could also heavily benefit one of your opponents, but nonetheless, a very, very powerful card, and plays pretty damn well with the general. Alright, now we're going to look at all the board sweeps. So we run Extinguish All Hope, cost 6, destroy all non-enchantment creatures. Zombie Apocalypse, because we're a tribal zombie deck, so why the hell not? Cost 6 via 3 and triple black. Return all zombie creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped, then destroy all humans. So not going to hit every creature on the board, but it is going to heavily benefit you because you're going to get all the zombies in your graveyard back to play. Then we have Kindred Dominance, 7-cost sorcery. Choose a creature type, destroy all creatures that aren't of the chosen type. So obviously we're going to choose zombies with this, and then we're going to destroy all creatures in play that aren't zombies. Pretty good. Then we have Decree of Pain. It costs 8 via 6 and double black. Destroy all creatures that can't be regenerated. Draw a card for each creature destroyed this way. So not only is it a board sweep, it's also lots and lots of card advantage. But it does have cycling as well. So you can cycle it for 3 and double black. So when you cycle it, you discard it and then draw a card. And then whenever you cycle this, all creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn. So kind of like a double kind of board sweep. You can cycle it for a lesser form of a board sweep, but most of the time you're going to be hard casting this for the 8 to wipe everything off the board and then draw a buttload of cards. And then we have in Garruk's Wake, a 9-cost sorcery via 7 and double black. Destroy all creatures you don't control and all planeswalkers you don't control. We don't run any planeswalkers in this deck. At least I don't. No, we don't. So very expensive card to play, but very worth it because it's going to wipe everybody else's board and leave yours intact. So those are the sorceries that we run in the deck. Next up, we're going to take a look at the instants that we run. We run 3. That's just some more spot removal. So we run Anguished Unmaking, Mortify, and Utter End. All just ways to, in a pinch, just remove something that we need to get off the board. So those are our 3 instants that we run. Again, just some spot removal. Next, we're going to take a look at the enchantments that we run. We run 8 enchantments. So first up, we run Reconnaissance. It's 1 white mana. You can pay 0 to remove target attacking creature you control from combat and untap it. So, pretty effectful card. If you don't like the way that your opponent's blocking a particular creature of yours, you can use this to essentially kind of save that creature from combat so that it's, not going to die. Or, if you have ways to kind of abuse like the way that this card works kind of also will give something like pseudo vigilance if you activate it during a particular time during the combat phase. Then we have Anointed Procession. Basically just it doubles all of the creature tokens that we generate. So if we activate our general's ability, we're going to get 2 2/2 black zombies instead of 1. Or if we have other ways to generate tokens, like with Cemetery Reaper, or any of the other stuff that we have that generates tokens, it's just going to double them for us. Then we have Endless Ranks of the Dead, a 4-cost black enchantment via 2 and double black. At the beginning of your upkeep, put X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is half the number of zombies you control rounded down. So we just talked about creature tokens with Anointed Procession and how it's going to double them. If we also have Endless Ranks of the Dead out, we're going to generate a whole bunch of zombie tokens, granted that we have enough to actually get this to trigger. You have to have at least 2 out for this to start generating tokens for you. But you can kind of imagine how out of hand that this plus Anointed Procession can get. Speaking of things getting out of hand, we have Cathar's Crusade, a 5-cost white enchantment via 3 and double white. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Pretty self-explanatory. Ridiculous, ridiculous card. Then we have Dictate of Erebos, a 5-cost black enchantment with flash. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. So it's a more expensive Grave Pact. More expensive in the mana cost, but not as expensive in actual price. Because Grave Pact costs about double of what Dictate of Erebos costs. But the fact that it has flash means you can, be all sneaky-deaky like with it. If someone's doing something to disrupt your board, you can flash this in and also make it hurt for them. Then we have Kindred Discovery, another 5-cost enchantment, but this one is blue, so it's via 3 and double blue. When it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Going to be zombies here. And whenever a creature you control of the chosen type enters the battlefield or attacks, draw a card. So, as you can see, we like drawing cards in this deck. We like drawing cards a lot. So we have lots and lots of ways to draw cards. This is just another way to do that. Then we have Palace Siege, another 5-cost enchantment via 3 and double black. When it enters the battlefield, choose Khans or Dragons. When you choose Khans at the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. 9 out of 10 times, that's what we're going to choose on this card. But if you choose Dragons at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So maybe it's late game, some of your opponents are a little bit low. Maybe you play this for Dragons late game to get, some people out of the game. But most of the time you're going to play it for its first mode to get the creature recursion. And then we have the good old Rooftop Storm, one of the most powerful cards in the deck by far. It costs 6 via 5 and 1 blue. You may pay 0 rather than pay the mana cost for zombie creature spells you cast. So very, very powerful card. You get this on the board, you just start vomiting out your hand of all the zombies that you have, because you don't have to pay their mana cost. You just pay 0, and you just slam them down on the board. So you get this out on the board and it stays unchecked, you're probably winning the game. If nobody deals with this card, I wouldn't say probably, you are going to win the game with this in play. But yeah, that's the last of our enchantments. Lastly, we're going to take a look at the mana base for this deck. So in total, we run 37 lands, and I just do want to preface this portion of the video before we go any further. You will notice that we do not run any blue-white dual lands in this deck. The reason for that being is the deck is very, very predominantly black. And there's a decent amount of blue, but very, very little white is needed for this deck. So our sources of white are going to come from our Orzhov colored lands and our mana rocks. I guess the same can be said for blue. The blue is going to come from our Dimir colored lands and our mana rocks as well. So Derek felt that it wasn't really needed to run Azorius colored dual lands. Probably for budget reasons. It's not cheap to build a commander deck mana base by any stretch of the imagination. So I guess the less dual lands you need, the less money that you got to spend to get it put together. So that's the reason why Derek doesn't run any blue-white dual lands in this deck. So I just wanted to preface that and get it out of the way in case any of you notice it as we're going through, so that you don't have to point it out to us in the comments section down below. But anyways, let's get on into it. So first up, we're going to take a look at the lands that we have that produce all 3 of our colors. Not very many, but we do have some. So we have an Arcane Sanctum. Comes into play tapped, and it taps for all 3 of our colors. Then we have Command Tower. Taps for any color in our commander's color identity. So obviously produces all 3 of our colors. Then we also have Path of Ancestry. Basically a command tower, but with a little added bonus. It does come into play tapped, but it will also tap for any color in our commander's color identity. But when we use that mana to cast a creature spell that shares a creature type with our commander, we get to scry 1. So being able to, peek at our top card and either keep it on top or put it on the bottom of our library, just gives us kind of more card advantage in a way. And then I think lastly for the lands that we have that produce all 3 of our colors, we have Reflecting Pool. So I guess it can kind of fall into this bracket where it produces all 3 of our colors, but it does rely on the lands that we have on the board. So it taps to add to your mana pool 1 mana of any type that a land you control could produce. So if we have our Arcane Sanctum out on the board, this will tap for white, blue, black. If we have only, let's say a Godless Shrine out on the board, this is only going to tap for white and black. So those are the lands that we have that produce all 3 of our colors. Next up, we're going to take a look at the lands that we have that produce white and black, so our Orzhov colored lands. So we have a Caves of Koilos, Concealed Courtyard, Godless Shrine, Isolated Chapel, Orzhov Basilica, Orzhov Guildgate, Scoured Barrens, Temple of Silence, and that is it. That is the lands that we have that produce white and black. Next, we'll take a look at the lands that we have that produce blue and black. So, we have a Darkslick Shores, Dimir Aqueduct, Dimir Guildgate, Dismal Backwater, Drown Catacomb, Temple of Deceit, Underground River, and Watery Grave. So those are our lands that produce Dimir, or blue and black. Next, we're going to take a look at some of our utility lands. Things that do little cool interactions for us. So we have Bajuka Bog. Comes into play tapped. Taps for a black, but it will exile all cards from somebody's graveyard when we slam it down on the board. So that's the real reason why we like it. Then we have Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse, the cheap man's fetch land, or fetch lands, I should say. You can sacrifice these away to fetch up any basic land out of your deck and put it into play tapped. Then we have Halimar Depths, comes into play tapped. Taps are a blue, but when it comes in, we can peek at our top 3 cards and then put them back in any order that we so choose. Then we have Reliquary Tower. It will tap for 1 generic, or, actually, no, not or. It taps for 1 generic, and it gives us no maximum hand size. So, that plays very well with our general, seeing as we're going to be drawing boatloads of cards with her if we're being very aggressive and attacking and attacking and attacking. We're going to be drawing lots of cards, so not having a maximum hand size is very nice. Then we have Temple of the False God. We'll tap for 2 generic, but we can only activate this ability if we control 5 or more lands. I guess it is kind of a downside, but most of the time you're probably not going to have to worry about that. And then we have Unholy Grotto and Volrath Stronghold. They basically kind of serve the same purpose, almost the same card for the most part in this deck. Unholy Grotto taps for 1, and then we can pay a black and tap it, put target zombie card from our graveyard on top of our library. And then Volrath Stronghold basically does the same exact thing, except it's a little bit more expensive to activate the second ability. So we pay 1 and a black and tap it, put target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. So the Unholy Grotto has the, zombie restriction, but in this deck it's not really a restriction now, is it? Because, all of our cards except for 2, Gissa and Geralf, and then Ghoulcaller Gissa, are the only 2 cards that we have in the deck, pretty sure, that aren't zombies. So these cards basically serve the same purpose. And then we have Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, which makes each land in play a swamp in addition to its other types. So, that wraps up all the non-basics, and then as far as the basic lands that we have in the deck to round out the mana base here, we run 2 islands, 3 plains, and 3 swamps. So that wraps it up. That is everything. That's all the aspects of the deck. I'm going to turn it over to Derek here. He's going to talk about some of the engines, as he likes to call them, or combos that the deck can pull off that do very dirty, degenerate things infinitely. So we did allude to it earlier in the video, so here we go. Take it away, Derek. Let's see what the deck can do.
Alright guys, so now we're going to go with some of the synergies the deck has and some of the things it can really do to create an engine and how it really tries to push through and generate a lot of value. So one of the basic engines it has is Gravecrawler and Phyrexian Altar with, let's say, any zombie on the board. So for the case of an example, we'll use Varina. So simple one here, we can sacrifice Gravecrawler for a black mana 2 Phyrexian Altar, because we have another zombie on the board that lets us use Gravecrawler's ability to cast him from the graveyard. And we use that black to cast him. So with that, we've got some basic value going of a recurable engine that gives us infinite amounts of leaves and enter the battlefield triggers. Okay, so with that, we can add in Vengeful Dead, or Diregraph Captain, or Wayward Servant, and all of these will ping our opponents more or less. Wayward Servant makes it so they lose a life, we gain a life. Diregraph Captain makes it so each opponent or target opponent loses a life. And Vengeful Dead makes it so each opponent loses a life. So when we have Gravecrawler entering the battlefield an infinite number of times and leaving an infinite number of times, we now have an infinite amount of life loss. But wait, we can do more. We can do better. We could add in Kindred Discovery, and now we have infinite card draw. We can add in Vanquisher's Banner, we have infinite card draw. We can add in Midnight Reaper, and we have infinite card draw. Now with Midnight Reaper, we actually end up killing ourselves because we would go ahead and be taking a damage on every card we draw. But if we have Wayward Servant out, that's actually nullified, so we don't lose the life because we're losing life, gaining life, losing life, gaining life. Or if we just take Unraveling Mummy, pay the 1 white to give target zombie lifelink, we can give our Midnight Reaper lifelink, so every time he pings us, we gain a life. So that's just a fun little interaction there. But that's a pretty cool little engine we have going. And I'm all about engines and synergy. It's one of the things I love to build the most. So we can even swap in something like a Dictative Erebos, and now we have infinite triggers for our Dictative Erebos. But what happens if someone gets rid of our Phyrexian Altar? Oh no, it's gone. We don't have it anymore. Well, we can actually swap in Rooftop Storm and have the same exact outcome as long as we have another sack outlet, like say Grim. So now we can sacrifice our Gravecrawler to Grim to untap him, and when he's in the graveyard, we can use our Rooftop Storm to recast him. Again, just generating a lot of value, having a lot of synergy. And this same loop right here will trigger all of our life loss effects, all of our draw effects, all of our sacrifice effects. We just have a lot going on. And there's even other ways we can do the same exact thing. We could, if we don't have Gravecrawler, and we have Rooftop Storm and Phyrexian Altar, we can actually sub out for our Relentless Dead. So how we do that is we sacrifice Relentless Dead to Phyrexian Altar. That will generate 1 black mana. We use that black mana to return Relentless Dead to our hand, and then we use Rooftop Storm to cast him for free. Again, that gives us infinite ETBs, infinite LTBs, and just really good stuff all around. But what if we don't have Phyrexian Altar or Relentless Dead? Okay. We can actually sub in Sidraxis Alchemist. Now he's a zombie that says, when he comes into play, if you control a blue permanent, like Rooftop Storm, or Grim, or Varina, then we can return target non-land permanent to his owner's hand. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to cast Sidraxis Alchemist, but because we control a blue permanent, we can bounce something. We're going to bounce our Sidraxis Alchemist, and then cast him again, bounce him, cast him again. Now that doesn't give us any LTBs, so it nullifies our Dictate, it nullifies our Diregraph, and it nullifies our Vengeful Dead, but it still puts online our Wayward Servant because that's whenever a zombie enters. So we still have infinite life loss, infinite life gain, and infinite card draw. It actually turns off our Midnight Reaper as well. But we still have infinite draw, infinite casts, if you wanted a storm sub-theme maybe, as well as the infinite life loss here as the infinite life gain. So that's something we can do also. Also, to every one of these engines, we could also go ahead and add in our Cathar's Crusade. Whenever one of our zombies enters the battlefield, bing, 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 it's going to trigger our Cathar's Crusade every time and make our zombie army freaking huge. Huge. It's going to be big. It's going to be huge. So that's something else that we could do there. And then we can swap out some of these pieces. We could swap out our Rooftop Storm and our Sidraxis Alchemist for being able to use our Skinrender or our Plague Belcher, as long as we have down Machias and one of our sacrifice outlets. So I'll go over how this works in a second once I find the last piece of it. I moved off to the side here. So I'll go over how this one works. So we have our little combo here, or our engine. So you need Machias because the Undying is important for these guys. But basically you sacrifice your Plague Belcher or your Skinrender to Grimgrin to untap him, or to Phyrexian Altar for a black mana. Okay, that's fine. Either one will die, and because of Machias, they both have Undying now, they'll come back. Now when they come back, they're going to get a +1/+1 counter, so they can't Undy again, but they're going to ETB. Now when they ETB, Skinrender can put 3 -1/-1 counters on target creature. You have him put them on himself. Now that's going to not kill him. It's going to get rid of the +1/+1 counter and then leave 2 -1/-1 counters, which will leave him at a 1/1. Similar to how it's going to be with Plague Belcher. Plague Belcher is going to enter with a +1/+1 counter, become a 6/5 with Menace, so he's actually going to be kind of a monster anyways. And then you have to put 2 -1/-1 counters on target creature you control. So what you're going to do is you're going to put those 2 -1/-1 counters on him, which is going to lower him down to a 4/3. But now because they don't have 1/1 counters on them, they can Undy again, creating another loop here. So just more of the value engine. And this value engine does the exact same thing. You can add in the Cathar's Crusade for the counters. You can add in the Kindred Discovery and the Vanquisher's Banner for the infinite draw. You can add in your Dictator of Erebos for the infinite sack triggers. You can add in the Wayward Servant for the life loss, life gain. You can add in the Midnight Reaper for the infinite draw. The Vengeful Dead for the life loss. The Diregraph Captain for the life loss. Also, Plague Belcher, as well as being one of these synergistic combo pieces, also serves as another one of our aristocrat type effects that drains one of our opponents. So as you can see, it's just a huge value engine where a lot of the parts can sub out for different parts, and that gives you huge value. So basically we have Machias, who's an enabler. We have Grimgrin, that's an enabler. We have Phyrexian Altar, that's an enabler. And then we have our interchangeable combo pieces, which would be Skinrender, Plague Belcher, Relentless Dead, and Gravecrawler. So this is our engine right here of 7 swappable cards. Not bad. And then we have ways to benefit off of it. So we have our Kindred Discovery for draw. We have our Vanquisher's Banner for draw. We have our Midnight Reaper for draw. Dictator of Erebos for sacks. Cathar's Crusade for life generation. Then we have our aristocrat type effects for Wayward Servant to lose life, gain life, Vengeful Dead to lose life, Diregraph Captain to lose life, and like I said, Plague Belcher fills a dual role of being a combo piece as well as one of our aristocrat type effects. We also have the whole Sidraxis Alchemist Rooftop Storm synergy. So, I mean, a big part of this deck, while these cards are all viably good cards on their own for what they do, we have tons and tons of synergy and value here.
Alright, so that wraps up everything, guys. We do hope you enjoyed this deck tech for Derek's Varina Lich Queen Tribal Zombie Commander deck. So yeah, if you enjoyed it, crush that thumbs up button. It really does help us out a lot. The more we get you to thumbs up the videos, the more likely they are to pop up in other people's feeds with similar interests. So if you did enjoy the video, hit that thumbs up button. Leave us some comments down in the comment section down below of what you thought of this deck tech, or if you have any suggestions of cards to play. Maybe you or somebody you know has a Varina deck. Leave us some suggestions on cards that you think that we should play in this deck if you have any, or just any comments in general. We basically read them all, so we really do like to hear your feedback and your suggestions and stuff like that. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, Tap and Turn Gaming, why don't you consider hitting that subscribe button? We really would appreciate that as well. And if you would like to get notified each and every time we upload a new video here on Tap and Turn Gaming, click that little bell icon that's next to the subscription button, and then you will get notifications each and every time we upload a brand new video. So, again, that wraps up everything here. I am Jay from Tap and Turn Gaming, and again, hope you all enjoyed watching this video. Do all of those YouTube things. Thumbs up, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you later in the next video.